Hello and welcome. Today, the Living with Wildlife Illinois team is sitting down to talk about the high-tech side of managing wildlife in Illinois. I'm Laura Kamen.
And I'm Kathy Andrews Wright. Today, our guest is Chad Bartman. He's a Geographic Information Specialist with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Division of Wildlife Resources. Welcome, Chad. You want to start things off by giving us a little bit of an overview about yourself and your role within the division?
Well, thank you for having me on. I've been with the division for approximately 15 years now. Started back in 2006 with them, actually. And my background is generally, my undergrad is in biology and my master's is in geography. So I'm actually working in my subject matter area. I'm very happy to be in this position.
So the DNR recently launched a new website, Hunt Illinois, back in September of last year. And one of the tools available on that website is the Hunt Map, which basically is a digital map that showcases the information from the hunter fact sheets. I'm taking a look at that map right now, and there has to be well over 200 or more sites on public land where people can go to hunt or trap. And so I imagine that this must have just been a massive undertaking to put this map together and to refine it with more information. Would you give our viewers sort of a quick overview about what kind of information they can find on this map and kind of the process that it takes to put something like this together?
We started this probably a good 10 years ago when I came on to the division. And we would always do hard copy maps for each site within the state. Since we were already collecting the data, it was just a matter of when the technology caught up and we could actually display the data to the world, for that matter. So as we went along, we would collect up, deer blind or duck blinds, parking lots, where can you hunt squirrel versus where you can hunt deer. So what we did is finally aggregated it all together and then developed a simple application that you can access from anywhere. You can access it through your laptop, or you can even use your cell phone. Works quite well on the cell phone, actually. And we can display a greater amount of data that way, very much more granular or small scale level, where initially you could just see the site map. You knew where the site was located. Now you can know where within that site you can hunt spring turkey, go archery deer hunting. We're down to that level now. This allows us a lot more flexibility, and our changes and updates are almost instantaneous. Once I go in and add a duck blind to the system, it's there. Everybody can see it out throughout the world. So it's been a long journey, but a good one. We're finally getting to that point where we can display this kind of information.
Yeah, I think it's a very useful tool because I was playing around with it a little bit, and you can go in and, like you said, different species. So if I want to do spring archery hunting for deer or turkey, or if I need to know where I can go hunt squirrels or waterfowl, this seems to have it all, and even down to like the blind, as you were saying. So it's a very, very cool tool.
I can bring it up right now. We can give it a test. If you're using your laptop, this is what you would see when you first bring it up. Basically, all the yellow dots indicate all the state sites where you can go hunting in the state. They also correspond to the hunting digest that we produce the hard copies for. Each one of those dots corresponds to one of the sites in the digest. So if we wanted to go look at, say, Apple River Canyon, you would go up to the top corner, type in Apple River, and it will zoom you to Apple River Canyon. And you wanted to see, well, the background map will catch up momentarily. There it goes. If you wanted to see where you could go deer hunting at Apple River Canyon, we could look at down to the level of seeing where you could go firearm deer hunting. The Salem unit is open up for firearm deer hunting. Let's see if they have blinds. Well, they don't have any duck blinds there, which is not surprising. You could also look and see where does it allow for trapping. Let's see if it allows for fur bear trapping. And right now, they're not indicating they're allowing for fur bear trapping. Let's see if they allow for coyote hunting. There we go, coyote hunting in the Salem unit again. So we're getting down to this level of detail at our site maps where we can see where you can go hunt what, and they correspond to the actual seasons we have in place currently. And if you zoom out to the state, you can actually look and see where, let's look at waterfowl. We can turn on the waterfowl zones, zoom out far enough, and it'll actually show all of our zones. You can see where the pink lines there indicate what zone they're falling into. And if you just click on it, it'll tell you you are in the central duck and goose zone. So there's a number of other items on here where you can change the background. You can print the page. If you allow your GPS to follow you on your phone, if you're out in the field, it'll actually, you can walk up using the GPS to find your duck blind. So it's quite handy in that respects. The only thing about it is it does require you to have a cell coverage of where you're at. And as we know, there are some locations in Illinois that still don't have cell coverage. But those are far and few between anymore, mostly in far southern Illinois. But it allows you to do a number of items, search for each individual site. You can, more data than we've ever been able to provide quickly to the public than we have before.
Thanks, Chad, for that overview. It's amazing how much technology is allowing us to move forward and to provide that information for the outdoor enthusiasts of Illinois. Another aspect of your job, you play a critical role in the chronic wasting disease tracking process for Illinois. And we all know that it's definitely a very important process that we need to control this always fatal disease of the cervids, and making sure that we have a healthy deer population in Illinois. That's our ultimate goal, is to do that. So please fill us in. You are working on aerial survey of deer in the chronic wasting positive areas, and tell us what all that entails.
During the winter, when we have snow cover on the ground and we're able to see the deer on the ground from overhead, we actually conduct aerial surveys using helicopters to fly and monitor the number of deer within our CWD zones. So a CWD zone is based upon where a known positive has been located, and then 2 miles outside of that known positive section. So if you can imagine, we know what section the positive was found. It's in a section is approximately 1 mile square, township and range section. And for 2 miles outside of that is where we actually monitor what is going on with the aerial surveys. So initially, we started the aerial surveys back in 2003 after we discovered our first positive in 2002. And given that we have good snow coverage, we attempt to fly every year. We did have a couple of years, I think 2015 and 16, we did not fly because we didn't have good enough snow. This year, on the other hand, we had snow coverage and it almost lasted the whole time we were out in the field, especially in northern Illinois. So we managed to fly almost our whole entire operational zone or area for CWD, all the way down from Livingston County up to Joe Daviess County and across over into Cook County for that matter. So we did a lot of flying this year. When we do these surveys, we're utilizing a GIS application. So when you see the deer on the ground, you don't count individual deer, you'll count a group of deer. You'll mark where they're at. The GPS location is taken from the air, and It's you, the pilot, and another biologist behind you in the back seat of the helicopter, and they actually just confirm what you saw. It's easy when you see 2, 3 deer, but when you see 30, 40 deer herded up in one location, you want to make sure you try to get the best count you can. I flew quite a bit this winter. I spent most of my time from basically January 1st on through March. I was up in the air every 2 or 3 days, just hoping I don't get airsick.
That does sound like much more fun than being stuck behind a desk.
Yes.
So if you have almost close to 20 years of data from these aerial surveys now, what sort of trends are you guys seeing? Anything interesting that you can share?
It's amazing how you think where we find deer is always ever changing. We do attempt to look for deer on known locations where habitat is, established. So what we have a deer habitat model that was developed back in 1990, and we've used it to cover those areas. But what we're discovering over time is areas that we thought there wasn't good habitat is now becoming good habitat, and areas that we did have good habitat, we're losing it. We see our ag fields, basically tree lines along ag fields are disappearing. However, areas that had sporadic woodlands are now infilling. So we're seeing that effect, and we're seeing deer being concentrated in more areas, and higher densities in certain areas, and other areas where we're just simply, there's no habitat. That's one of the larger trends we're seeing. And then just the effect of our management and the number of deers we find. It's amazing how you can go on one property and see a large herd of deer. The next door, you don't see any deer at all. And it really comes down to how that individual landowner is managing their property. So, are they actually actively hunting the property or not? So that's commonly what we see.
So if they are actively hunting it, what would be the difference between a property where they are active hunters versus properties where they don't allow hunting, let's say?
Yeah. Areas though that they don't allow hunting, we'll see really high concentrations or high densities of deer. Areas that we do not, there is active hunting programs, or landowners are allowing hunting to take place, especially allowing hunters to take does along with bucks. We see their density levels are normal, not having problems with browse lines or overpopulation in those given areas.
Thank you for that overview, Chad. You've got a couple of fascinating projects going on within the division, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we don't have time to talk about today. But I find it fascinating, as you said earlier, that you are really enjoying the fact that you're able to combine your two interest areas of wildlife management and geography together in a career. What kind of tips would you give to a young person who has similar interests? They're interested in wildlife management, but they're also interested in computers. What kind of tips would you give them for pursuing a career down the same track that you have followed?
With our new biologists that we're hiring nowadays, almost all of them have some type of GIS background. So if you're coming into, if you want to work in the area of wildlife management, and you're given the opportunity to take a GIS class or other computer-based, modeling classes, by all means, take advantage of it. It makes you more marketable when it comes to getting a job. And we all know that these jobs are not all that common. So every little bit helps to trying to get it into a position.
Good advice. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for today, but are there any last thoughts or comments that you want to share with our viewers about using technology to get information out to hunters and trappers in Illinois?
If anybody wants to see any data, we have more data than we know what to do with. So by and large, if the public wants to see some form of geographic data, we can provide it to them. We just want to do it in the most efficient way possible.
Thanks, Chad, for sitting down with us today. For our viewers, you know the drill. If you have questions about Illinois wildlife, or if you have suggestions for future Q&A sessions, please send those in to us at the Wildlife Illinois website. Thank you for watching.